Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk about a very important subject that I have mentioned in passing in other videos, but I thought it deserved its own headline. So basically what I want to talk about today is the fact that the holster, okay, a hard Kydex holster, is the safety mechanism on a modern striker-fired gun. Okay, so here I've got a Glock 17. Okay, it's got a fairly light trigger pull. It's got no safety on the gun. The gun doesn't need a safety because the safety is the holster. Okay, it has to be a hard Kydex holster like this. It cannot be a leather holster. It cannot be a fabric holster. And I've seen pictures of leather holsters that over time, they weaken, and this piece here can collapse and kind of fall towards the trigger, and eventually you'll be reholstering and you'll activate the trigger. So you need a hard Kydex holster to serve as the safety mechanisms for a striker-fired gun. Now, why this? Why not a manual safety? One of the things that I have seen repeatedly over many years is that when guns have safeties on them, specifically handguns, what happens is people either forget to remove the safety, or they accidentally put the safety on. And a lot of guns have safeties on them. They have like these really small safeties that's only there because in some states it's required. Some states, they have laws that say that they cannot sell a handgun unless it has a safety on the gun. But it's like so small. I mean, it's like impossible to actually activate. Not impossible, but it's very difficult to activate under a stressful situation, especially if your hands are sweaty. So those safeties really aren't meant to be used. They're there just because they have made arbitrary laws in certain states that require that safety to be there. And they specifically make those safeties so they're out of the way, and there's like no chance that you're gonna accidentally put it on. But on other guns like 1911s, I have seen many times what happens is that people, while they're shooting, while they're doing drills, they accidentally put the safety on when they're not expecting it to be on, or sometimes the gun's sitting in the holster. And they think the safety's on when it is in fact off. And it doesn't matter if the safety, if you have a 1911 that's in a hard plastic holster like this that protects the trigger guard, it doesn't matter if the safety comes off, because again, the safety mechanism is the holster itself. But the problem with that is that if you pull the gun out of the holster and you think that the safety is off, and it's actually on, and the gun's not working. And on the 1911, the way that gun is meant to be used is that your thumbs actually ride on top of the safety while you're shooting. That way you make sure that the safety is off. But I don't want to make this the focus of the video. The focus of this video is the fact that the holster is the safety mechanism for the modern striker-fired gun. Now you might say, well, how about your AR-15s and AK-47s? They got safeties. Well, the thing is that an AR-15 doesn't go in a holster. It gets slung over your back, or it hangs in front of you, so the trigger is exposed. That's why a fighting rifle has to have a safety mechanism on it that's drop safe. Okay, and shotguns are not. The safeties on shotguns are not considered drop safe. So that's why usually when people store shotguns, they don't store them with a round in the chamber. They store them cruiser ready. Except with the exception, of course, being if you know that there's riots and stuff going around town. I mean, yeah, then you may want to consider putting the around in the chamber and safety on, if your situation is that hot. But generally speaking, yeah, AR-15s, AKs, around the chamber, safety on. And that's part of your, drill. When you do like up drills with an AR-15, you come up, you practice taking that safety off. Now, usually, when we're using an AR-15, there's a little bit more mental preparation, okay? In the sense that, okay, somebody's breaking into your house, you get your, you get your equipment, you get yourself into that, into your safe room, you get yourself into behind cover, right? You get yourself into that position that you have planned ahead of time. So you're better prepared. So when somebody crosses that line in the stand, right, you give them that verbal warning, get out of there. I've talked about in other videos about actually if somebody's in your house, using that 1000 lume light that's on your rifle to shine it in their face as a final warning. Back off, because because basically a 1000 lume light in somebody's eyes in a house that's relatively dark, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to back off, or they're going to charge you real hard, and at least that it's going to happen then and there. Okay, so you're kind of taking initiative. But the point is that when an AR-15, you have a little better preparation. You're in position. Okay, if you're using your handgun, you're in an emergency situation, whether it's because let's say you're in a home defense situation and your rifle went down, and now you're resorting to your handgun, or if you're out walking about and you are attacked. You usually have less warning. Okay, you might be in an awkward place, right, where you're not familiar with your surroundings like you would be in your own home. Using a pistol is usually more of an emergency type of situation, and the last thing you want to deal with is with a safety. Okay, whereas with a rifle, yeah, you had a chance to get yourself into that position, to your behind cover, and you're a little bit better prepared, and you're mentally prepared to take that safety off before you start using the gun. Now, this is an outside the waistband holster. This is a Glock 17. It's big. It sticks out a lot. This is the type of gun that I would use, if I'm, as a backup to an AR-15. Okay, so this is, what I consider, a shit hit the fan type of pistol, or a duty pistol. For everyday carry, that's a little bit too big. It sticks out too much. So for everyday carry, I prefer this M&P Shield. It's a 7-shot. I keep another magazine, on the other side. But again, this is a striker-fired gun, so the safety mechanism of this gun is the holster. Okay, there's no safety on this gun. Okay, and basically because it's inside the waistband, and it's in this 5 o'clock position, it takes a lot of practice to be able to pull this gun out, extend, come back in, pull your shirt out of the way and reholster, and that's part of my draw stroke, because even if I have a gun outside the waistband, I always want to get my hands on my body someplace so I'm not actually drawing into my hand, and it works just as well having to clear the shirt, pull the gun out, join here, go to full extension, do everything in reverse, get the gun back into the holster. And really important that there's nothing else in this area. I don't hang keys over here. I don't have a cell phone, right? Phone's on this side over here. So there's nothing else in this area that would accidentally snag that trigger as I'm reholstering, especially in a gun that's inside, in a holster that's inside the waistband, because obviously now I'm bringing the gun even closer to my body. And what I typically do is when I come out, right, and come back in, I usually will stick my ass out a little bit, so I'm pointing the muzzle kind of away from my body. So that's part of, that's part of my drill, and that's something that I practice. This is something that needs to be practiced. I practice this with a timer, and without a doubt, I am a lot slower, drawing a gun out of a holster that's inside the waistband. There's no question about that. If the gun is outside the waistband on the side over here, I am a lot faster. I've seen it on the timer. However, this is a little bit awkward. It sticks out. This is a lot more comfortable for me to carry. I can sit in the car, because that's a big consideration. A lot of times people don't think about, you got to carry a gun like this, and yes, if you're standing all day, yes, this is okay. But what happens when you go to sit down in the car, right? Where's the seatbelt? So seatbelt's going to be right where this gun is, so that's really awkward. That's why for like professional drivers, a lot of times they'll use like shoulder holsters. It makes a lot more sense for them, given if they're going to be driving all day. But for me, it makes sense to have a thin gun like this, like the M&P Shield. I keep it in the 5 o'clock position here. Basically, it sits on the hollow of my ass over here. So it's between the hip bone and the ass cheek. Right? There's a little groove in there. That's where it sits. And I practice with this gun. You got to practice with this gun, and I will do repetitive drills. Right, coming out of the holster, coming out, going out, reholster, coming out. So this is what you gotta do. I mean, you gotta practice this. You gotta practice this, especially with a, if you're inside the waistband, you gotta practice drawing from that position and reholstering to that position. A lot of people are like, well, when you reholster, you should never look. Well, my thing is that, if the gun's on the side and you might be in a very awkward position, you might be behind cover on your knees or whatever, so your body might not be in the normal position that it normally is in. So, if you need to look at the holster to safely reholster it, because obviously you're not going to reholster until you've already done your scan assess and you know that it's safe to reholster the gun. If you need to look at it for a split second to make sure that you're safely reholstering, do so. Now, in this 5 o'clock position, that's not an option, okay? Because I really can't see back there. So that's fine. So what I do is I reholster more slowly. It might be a race to come out of the holster, but it's never a race to go back into the holster. Now, one of the things that I will typically tell people is that if you're in a self-defense situation, right, what I'll do is if I have to draw the gun, fire, come out, right? All right. So in this case, gun's empty. Actually, let me actually go through the magazine change. I wasn't planning to do that, but hey, I'll do it. All right. Got that in there? Fine. Okay. So I'll do my scan assess, right? Now, when I do my scan assess, what I'll do is a lot of times I'll cover the gun up. Okay, that's part of my scan assess. Because after I fire those shots, I don't want everybody seeing that I have a gun because they might not know that I'm not the bad guy. They might mistake me for a bad guy. So let's do this again, right? I'm going to come out of the holster. Right, come out, fire my shots. I'm going to cover the gun up. Right, do my scan assess. Maybe to get behind cover. Do my scan assess from here, and then safely reholster the gun. So that's an important thing. Think about your cover, but think about covering your gun, and then looking around, making sure the coast is clear, right? But keep the gun covered, okay? And then reholster it as quickly as it is feasible, okay? Once you know that, there's no immediate threat, get the gun back in the holster so that people don't mistake you for a bad guy. And likewise, in reverse, if you hear gunshots and you see somebody with a gun, right, you're not going to know who the good guys and who the bad guys are. Look at their gun handling, okay? Look at, are they disciplined? Are they flagging everybody, or are they being careful not to flag people? That's going to give you a lot of information about who's a potential good guy versus who's a potential bad guy. Because a bad guy's not going to care. He's just going to flag everybody. He's going to be, walking around like he's the Terminator, not caring. Whereas a good guy is going to probably be behind cover. He's going to be a lot more cautious. He's going to be looking around. He's going to have a gun in the holster as opposed to, down his pants. So these are like telltale signs. How people act, how people move is going to tell you about, who's good and who's bad. They'll give you subtle hints. So these are all things to consider. But like I said, the main thing I wanted to talk about in this video is that the holster, okay, the holster is the safety mechanisms for the modern striker fired gun, and it has to be a hard Kydex holster like this that protects the trigger guard. This one has a little button. Both of these holsters have a screw over here that allows you to tighten the tension. And where do I want that tension? I want that tension so that if you look at me when I come out of the holster, you see my belt actually pulls out a little bit. So there's some force involved in getting the gun out of the holster, but not so much that I'm pulling my pants up and maybe the holster's coming off the belt. So I want it just right so that there's enough tension so that the gun won't accidentally fall out or somebody can't easily grab it out. Because in order to get the gun out of here, I got to get a firm grip on the gun in order to come out. Okay. So again, you wanna adjust that tension just right. I know some holsters have a retention button that you have to push. If you're gonna get a holster that has like what we call level 2 retention, I prefer the button on the inside over here where you push down and pull up, right? As opposed to over here. I don't like it. I don't like a release button on this side here, because if you're pushing a button here, again, and as you come out, because you're applying pressure, it's just too easy for your finger to slip onto the trigger. So what happens when my finger comes, when I pull my finger, I want this finger loose. I don't want this finger applying any pressure to release buttons over here. So if there has to be a release button on the holster, right? You feel that you need it, it has to be on the inside over here that you can activate with your thumb, so that all the pressures with your thumb, and actually with your thumb, you're actually able, you push the button, because I have one of those, you push the button, and it actually helps you lift the gun out of the holster, okay, as opposed to having a button on this side. So that's something important when you're selecting holsters. If you got to have a retention, level 2 retention with a release button, you don't want it on the outside where the trigger is, where you're applying pressure as you're pulling up. You want it on the inside where you're hitting that button with your thumb. So if you guys have any comments, questions, any feedback, whatever, put in the comment section. I love getting feedback from you guys. Maybe you guys have some ideas that I have not thought of. If you're not a member of the channel, please subscribe. I'll talk to you guys soon.